even if we don't think our kid's going to make it to the pros one day, it's you got to play this because you got to make all-star, you got to make rep, you got to make select, you got to make travel, it's got to be AAA. House league doesn't seem to exist anymore, and if it does, it's like, oh, you're only in house league. Every athlete that I've ever talked to, even to this day, the athletes will say, play multiple sports, get acclimated to other sports, use your body in different ways, get away from the game, even mentally, just to get away from the game. But yet, we as parents oftentimes are just saying, no, it's got to be hockey, and it's got to be off, on-land training and off-ice and all of this stuff.
Dry land training.
Dry land training. So what I wanted to ask Wayne was, from his history of saying how he would have preferred to have played baseball, and he ultimately became the greatest hockey player, at least in my opinion, greatest hockey player ever. What did he make of how basketball has just exploded over the course of the last decade across the country, and its place amongst the Canadian sports fan, but then the young athlete as well, in terms of growing up not just with the game of hockey, but now being exposed that much more to basketball, to soccer, to other sports that really weren't as available or weren't as popular, obviously, when he was a kid, let alone when I was a kid.
Do you think Wayne Gretzky would have looked you in the eyes?
Probably not. I don't know.
Have you ever interviewed Wayne Gretzky?
Once.
Did he look you in the eyes, or was he?
It's always moving. It's always moving. Yeah. It's always moving.
Yeah, it's like you gotta. It's like I interviewed him once, and I asked him. I started the interview with, when you respond in text messages, are you an LOL guy or a ha 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 guy? Because I was trying to figure out how can I make Wayne Gretzky relatable to every. I was like, well, let's talk about our phones. And he goes, oh, my son Trevor is over here. I think I'm a ha 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 guy. That immediately loosened him up, and it wasn't it was during the World Cup of hockey, and I'm sure it's like, how great do you think this tournament is? Like, he got a bunch of those, and then I reminded him of a time where Sam Gagner had an 8-point night playing with the Edmonton Oilers in 2013 or 14. So Sam Gagner got a text message from Wayne Gretzky that night. It was like, great game, 99. So that's how he signs his text messages. So I asked him about that, and he really started laughing. He goes, yeah, I just left a message for Andrei Kopitar in his locker, and I signed it 99. And then later that day, Kopitar posted the note that Wayne Gretzky had left for him, and there was 99 at the bottom of the note. So that's awesome. I'm trying to find those little nuggets to make someone more human than just this iconic sports figure that we revere.
All right, listen, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, and I apologize for doing that, but I know you had told me initially that you might only be able to do about 30 minutes, and we've already hit that 30 minutes, and I haven't even gotten to the juice that I know a lot of people want me to talk to you.
Well, listen, Instagram's going to kick us off in 15 minutes, so we'll get to the end. I think it's an hour.
Yeah, I learned that real quick last week when Elliot was in the middle of a sentence and we just got booted. I figured they're going to give you a 2-minute warning, a 1-minute warning, not 30 seconds, boom, you're done. So, Kev, from Michael Jordan to Wayne Gretzky to LeBron James, I can sit here and the list goes on, clearly. How did the relationship with Kobe develop? Take me to that first interview with Kobe, and then let alone when we get then to the second interview, the third interview. How did it start with him to the point where the seed was planted for a friendship, a bond that extended even off camera?
Well, thanks for asking. It was December 2005. There was a huge snowstorm in Toronto. So only DK and I, and there was one other media outlet, I think it was maybe Raptors TV, was at the morning shoot-around. So Kobe, at the end of the shoot-around, I walk across the court. Kobe had this big blue parka on. He wasn't really in that great of a mood. So I asked him about bandwagon fans. And just as a throwaway question at the end of the interview, I said, hey, man, I have enough money to get to your crib, taxi money from the airport. But when I get to LA next time, can I stay at your house? Can I stay in your guest house? He's like, you want to stay at the guest house? I'm like, yeah. He goes, all right. I said, I want to stay at Casa de Bryant. He's like, okay, you can stay at the guest house. Now, people don't know this, but in basketball media availability, you have 10 minutes after morning shoot around. You have half an hour about an hour before tip-off. And they give about 20 minutes to 30 minutes after the game. So you could, in theory, speak to an athlete 3 times in one day. So I did. So right before, an hour before tip-off, I asked Kobe about the posters that he had in his room. And then before he went to the court for shoot-around, I said, hey, Kobe, since you said I could come to your house, what's your address? And he goes, my address. You want my address? I'm like, yeah. He goes, it's 8 Out of Your Mind Avenue. He wore 8 at the time. I'm like, okay. I'm like, can I find that on MapQuest? MapQuest code? And then he just walked out of the room. So then after the game, I asked him about, I think I had printed, did I print map? I went on MapQuest or something like, I can't find 8 Out of Your Mind Avenue. So I just continued. So now this was the thread. 2 months later, we're in Houston for the NBA All-Star Weekend. And I continued. I had this big, dumb cowboy hat. I was asking about like why things are bigger in Houston, and I had another series of questions about like just being levitating because these guys are high flyers and we're in Houston, the headquarters of NASA. So every time I spoke to him, I was like, hey, I checked that address. Can I have your phone number? He gave me a phone number, and it was 1-800, never, ever call me ever. And then the next time I saw him, like, I tried the number. Like, is there one with a different area code? He goes, did you try from your Canadian phone? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you got to get better service. So in the span of 4 months, I spoke to him like 6 times. And I have to give a shout out to Jim LeBombard, who was the Raptors PR director for about 20 years. And Allison Bogley, who still works for the Los Angeles Lakers. She is now the director of PR. Allison Bogley asked Jim LeBombard, what's the deal with this fat reporter bugging Kobe Bryant? And LeBombard vouched for me. He's like, he's harmless. He's a local guy. He's just, I don't know what else he said, but he just said he's harmless. So Kobe then, because I didn't have an agenda, and because I was only, my only mission was to make Kobe laugh or to ask him things that people weren't asking him. Then he lowered his guard. And then the first time I had like a one-on-one interview with Kobe, actually one of the few times I had to submit questions. So they were like they're pretty generic. And then when I got there, that's when he was the first athlete I started bringing. No, one of the first that I would bring props into the interview, because I liked us to do something. So I brought some pillows and some CDs, and he had a few good one-liners. And I would just like lob softballs up, and he would just knock them out of the park. So that's where the trust developed, because I wasn't trying to ask anything controversial. I was just like, I want to be your friend. And he's like, hold on a second. You just give me the Heisman every time that we did an interview. And eventually I got to host this video game event for him versus Carmelo. I got flown to LA to host this thing. And then afterwards we had dinner. And that's where I pitched the idea to fly in a helicopter. And I didn't DK was like, yo, we'll just get the score to rent like the biggest, baddest helicopter we can get. Like, we got to go all out for this. I was like, okay, yeah. So pitched it. And I didn't know that Kobe had his own helicopter. So 4 months later, boom, we're in LA, and then we're racing to this small airport in Santa Ana, California. We get in a small chopper. We attend practice. I interview him there. We attend the game. That day or the day after, he hits a game winner over D Wade. It's like a 3-pointer bank shot. I'm like, this is amazing. And that's probably the highlight of my career, is just that 24 hours of that 48 hours. And then subsequently, like afterwards, every time I saw him, I'd pitch him new ideas. And one time he told me, I pitched this idea about me buying his house, one of his houses. And he's like, and like the gag at the end was he would come home and he'd have these 2 big like pit bulls. And then we just like, the camera cut to me, cut back to Kobe, stern, cut back to me, surprised or a little bit anxious, cut back to Kobe, more stern, cut back to me, afraid, cut back to Kobe. He just drops the leashes and the dogs go end of the bit. Kobe's like, man, I need you to write some Dave Chappelle show shit. I was like, Dave Chappelle shit? I'm like, I'm a fat reporter from Toronto. What do you mean, Dave Chappelle is a comic genius. You want me to write Dave Chappelle shit? But it was a great motivator. I never did get to write some Dave Chappelle shit. And the one bit that Kobe did agree to before he left us, we never got to film, and I'd sent it, and I wrote like 5 different revisions because like there's some like girls in it, and like it was, and Molly Carter, who runs Kobe Inc., she's like, no, you need to do a revision. We can't have that ending. But unfortunately, I never got to make it. But that's how it started. That's the long-winded version of how I got Kobe's trust, and then he allowed me to show a different part of him to the audience. And it was mostly seen in Canada, and then randomly a guy who became a good friend of mine, Arash Markazi, wrote an article in ESPN about this strange Canadian dude interviewing Kobe Bryant, and that was like a big boost for us.
How do you find, listen, I'm going to guess that the answer is it happens organically, because clearly with any relationship, whether it's an athlete or just a regular Joe, anybody that comes into your life, things have to happen naturally. You can't force things. But how do you find the dynamic of the relationship develops or changes with certain guys, and you can allow it to happen organically to the point where you get close to a Kobe Bryant or you get close to an Aaron Rodgers? Like, we're talking with some of the greatest in their respective sports, or some of the greatest in the history of the game, that suddenly now you've crossed over into friend zone with some of these guys, where it isn't just, that's a reporter I'm cool with. Hey, I get along with a lot of guys, but I can count on one hand the amount of dinners or social gatherings, social events I've had with athletes over the years, because it's pretty clear that you're a broadcaster, you're a reporter, and I'm an athlete, and I might respect you, I might like you, we might have each other's numbers, we might even swap a text at Christmas, hey, hope the family's well, but it's not to the extent that you've been able to forge these relationships. So how have you, kind of managed that over the years in terms of not pushing it and knowing when is enough and when would be too much?
It's kind of like trying to court an attractive woman. It's like there are boundaries. And then there's you have to sort of pick your spots. But I think they appreciate just being communicated with as a human. So I would check in with dudes just like, yo, how's your week been? Or, oh, you got to listen. Have you seen this documentary? You got to listen to this. When Connor McDavid and I message, it's just about music. He loves me. We all love music. But I'm like, yo, you got to add these bangers to your workout playlist. He's like, yo, thanks for, he won't say, yo, thanks, but he'll be like, oh, thanks for, keep me up on some of the latest tracks. So, listen, I messed up a bunch of times. There were some players who I've been too overzealous with, and I've texted too much, and then the relationship just kind of deteriorates. And also, we're in the content business, so there are times where I've reached out to dudes, and I'm like, hey, do you want to do this thing for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or I wrote this thing specifically for you, and guys have said no because they have other things going on, or maybe I was just a little too aggressive. So it's a tough balance, and I've learned definitely the hard way. And there are some relationships that are jacked up that I haven't been able to repair, and others that I'm a little bit more. I have more mindfulness about these athletes and their time, how many people are in their lives, how many requests they get, because we never really know how many times. Like a Ray Ritter from the Golden State Warriors, How many times he'll get an interview request for Klay Thompson, not even Steph Curry, but a Klay Thompson. He might get 15 or 20 of those a day, but he has to manage how much Klay likes to deal with the media. And thankfully, I'll only ask for an interview once a year with some guys. There's it's a JJ Watt once a year. There's a Klay, there's a Rodgers. So I pick my spot so that I'm not annoying. And they don't say no right away. But there are some guys that definitely do not like it, like the way my interview style. So like a Chris Paul, I've only interviewed once, and he was like, "This is awful." It was like death of 1,000 with 1,000. Is it death of 1,000?
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Death by 1,000 cuts in the 2.5-minute interview that I did with Chris Paul once when he was with New Orleans. So. It's not for everybody, so I'm additionally grateful when I do form a legit friendship. I was messaging Mike Richards today, who I call Baby Bro. He's getting married this summer, and we were just reminiscing about he loves to fish, and my brain is too active for fishing. It's just too boring. But we talk to each other like friends, and I think the friendships I have been able to develop, we met professionally, but then we formed a bond personally, and that's important to me.
I know we've only got a couple of minutes left here, but I know for me, when you speak about that friendship, that bond, I mean, clearly everybody knew, the audience knew, your colleagues knew, your friends knew how important that bond, that friendship, that relationship was with Kobe, because, I'm in San Antonio, again, working the Sportsnet broadcast, not the radio, the day that the helicopter crashes and that Kobe passes. And I'm about to go on the air to host the broadcast because I was doing the pregame show that day as well. And outside of the moment and trying to formulate my thoughts and knowing that I'm going on to break the news and to talk about it, and, obviously we've completely scrapped any pregame show that was going to go on for the Spurs and Raptors. We're just going, fly by the seat of our pants on a Kobe Bryant show for the next 30 minutes. You're the first guy I thought of, man. Outside of everything else that was going on, you were the first one I thought of, because I just, right away, you just immediately, my mind went to you and to how you must have felt in that moment and how the world must be feeling. And I mean, yeah, my heart goes out to you as a friend, as a human, for what people were dealing with. And I mean this respectfully to you, and you're just such a small part to the huge world that Kobe was in and of himself, which is it just speaks to how many people were impacted by that. And sadly, it's almost now like you think of, man, I want to go back to January, as terrible as that is, based on how the world's unfolding now. I mean, we got to hit the reset button on 2020. If we ever have a chance, this is the one we want to restart.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Well, thanks for thinking of me in that moment. I appreciate it. And it was, that hit differently than any person's death in my life. And because my friend Brandon Lynch called me, and then I spoke to DK on the phone, and I just wasn't prepared for how that emotional tidal wave that hit. I just wasn't prepared for it. And I'm refreshing TMZ to get more information, and and you just can't. And I've heard, before it got to TMZ, the Lakers were alerted. They're flying from Philadelphia to Los Angeles, and they got it on the plane, and everybody remembers where you were. They remember, I think, when Michael Jackson passed, and they'll certainly remember where they were when Kobe Bryant passed. So that was, he was the most significant athlete that has affected my career personally, and because he elevated me to a certain level. And I've had incredible interactions with him, and I've had greater interactions with some other people, but Kobe has obviously a special place in my heart, and I'll never forget him. And I'll always be grateful for how he elevated the work.
Hey, Cab, I don't mean to end it on a somber note, but
that's okay. It was fun.
I want to end it before we get the countdown and we get completely cut off. Some people have been messaging in the comments that we need to have you back again because there's so many stories, and now the countdown is on 25 seconds. So I'm gonna bug you again in 2 months or something.
Okay, I'll be here.
Assuming we're still in quarantine and lockdown, but hopefully we're out of it.